Welcome back to Obsidian Exotics. So last month I drove nearly 7,000 kilometers from Melbourne, Victoria all the way to Cairns in Far North Queensland just to go and get some more fish for myself and for my long-term customers as well. This was my first time ever going beyond Brisbane and into the true tropics of Australia. So there were a few things on my list that I knew I definitely wanted to do. First on the list was to check out Cairns Aquarium and also Cairns Marine, where most of the world's greatest public aquariums and aquarium shops get their Australian marine fish from. Next up, it would be a crime if we didn't venture into the rainforest to truly appreciate the beauty of Far North Queensland. And last but not least, safely catch and transport all the monster fish we came up here for and take them down to Melbourne for their new homes. So if you could kindly subscribe to the channel and also smash that like button, that would really help this video spread to anyone else that would enjoy it and also help me grow the channel. Anyway, let's stop delaying this and get straight to the video. So around 5 AM on a Thursday morning, myself and my friend and new business partner, Toby, set off on what would be one of the longest drives I've ever done in my entire life. Since we didn't have any fish to transport on the way up, we decided to take the inland route through the harsh Australian outback. So we started off doing some driving, and then we continued to do some driving, and did some more driving, and then we did some more driving. And we stopped for fuel, and we did some more driving, and we were starting to feel a bit tired, so we actually did some more driving, and finally, after 24 hours, we did some more driving. And then we almost ran out of fuel in the middle of nowhere.
Alright, so we were doing really well, and then things almost got really bad, because we were about to run out of fuel, and we just found out that majority of the fuel stops here are closed. They close at like 5 or 6 or something like that. So we were praying that they have some sort of prepay service at the servo, and when we get here, luckily they have like a payment terminal thing. So thank God for that. Otherwise we were about to be stranded in the middle of, what town is this? Tambo?
Tambo, yes.
Yes.
Regional...
Shout out Tambo for having card services.
The oldest town in Central
Yes,
West.
yes, the oldest town in
We went to
Central
fight
West.
today.
Anyway, we're gonna get out of here.
Once we fueled up, we continued to do some more driving until eventually, after 32 hours of non-stop driving, we finally arrived at Cairns. Yeah, obviously we were pretty tired when we arrived, so we didn't really bother filming anything, we just went straight to bed. So the next day, we decided to explore the city of Cairns. Of course, we had to check out the local aquariums, like we always do whenever we're in a new town, and we also decided to check out the Cairns Aquarium. We had our lunch in front of a giant marine tank and ventured into the aquarium. Now, even though I figured Cairns would be best known for their marine fish, given they're right next to the Great Barrier Reef, I was actually blown away by their amazing freshwater displays. Everything was so beautifully displayed, and when we got to the giant native display tank, I honestly just wanted to sit there and soak it all in as long as I could. Some of these fish were among the biggest I've ever seen of those particular species. We continued along the path and eventually got to the marine displays. And as expected, they definitely didn't disappoint. The camera definitely doesn't do these displays justice, and I highly recommend you all to take a look for yourselves if you ever find yourself in Cairns. Everything from their coral displays to their massive marine tanks with giant sharks and stingrays were absolutely stunning. Once we left the aquarium, we decided to keep the theme going by going to Cairns Marine. If you haven't heard of Cairns Marine before, they're pretty much one of the largest global suppliers of Australian marine fish. Most of the biggest public aquariums all around the world wouldn't have some of their display fish if it weren't for all the hard work done by the guys at Cairns Marine. This was my first time being inside of their massive facility, and it was such an amazing experience. It was so cool to see so many stunning marine fish and corals, and even some massive sharks and rays as well. If you guys want to see a full in-depth tour of this place, I highly recommend checking out the video done by Gorge, aka Coralfish12G, a couple years ago when he toured the facility. After our tour, we went back to our hotel and continued our extremely healthy diet of pizza and Red Bull, and went to bed. We still had one more day before it was time to transport all the monster fish, so we decided it was time for us to explore the beautiful rainforests of Far North Queensland. We didn't have a lot of time left, so we decided to take everyone's recommendation and planned to go up to Mossman Gorge. On our drive up, we came across Hartley's Crocodile Adventures and decided to check it out.
Sent my entire life savings into this. Gotta have the crocodile sauce. Right.
What should just be like normal chicken? And they're like, oh, we just call it crocodile for the name.
Hot, man.
It was surprisingly full of many different animals from all over the world, and of course, it also had plenty of crocs. Some absolute monsters too. After our stop at the Crocodile Park, we continued heading north till we got to the Mossman Gorge Information Centre. And of course it was pouring down rain. Now, because we had no brain cells, we decided it would be much better if we walked there in the pouring rain.
I'm beginning to realise this is probably the worst decision we've made so far.
We'll be right. It's only about 4 kilometres of walking.
Yes.
We'll see what happens. Progress report.
Yes.
It's still raining, but this is actually really nice.
After about 45 minutes of walking in the rain, we arrived at the entrance to the gorge. And a few minutes later, we arrived at the riverbank, where we decided to go for a swim. There was something very eerie about swimming in this river in the rain with no people anywhere to be seen. All the crocodile warning signs we saw at every other beach and river leading up to this probably didn't help either. After our quick swim, we continued hiking deeper into the rainforest, before deciding to head back because it was getting dark and we didn't want to get shanked by a cassowary. After another night of Dominoes and Red Bull, we woke up late and went to pick up all the monster fish. First we started off by pumping water from the pond into the IBCs in the van. Then I jumped in the pond so I can catch the fish. This was actually really fun, apart from the horrible humidity. We were getting another male red-tailed giant gourami for my breeding project, as well as a super rare black arowana, one of my favourite fish and also the only arowana that's not on the noxious list in Victoria, which meant that I can actually keep it for myself. After that we got this massive red-tailed catfish that was over 1 meter long, which I wish I could have recorded, but it took all 3 of us to wrestle it into the van. And last but not least, another grey giant gourami. Once everything was loaded up, we drove straight to Toowoomba, where we had arranged for our first water change. The road to Toowoomba from Cairns was absolutely horrible, with many gravel roads stretching hundreds of kilometres and heaps of corrugation. It was a very uncomfortable drive.
Doing this for 120 kilometers roughly. We've still got 20 kilometers left and it's been like 2 hours. This was meant to be a shortcut, I think, and it's cost us nearly 2 hours. Anyway, hopefully we get to a normal road.
But hey, we eventually made it to Toowoomba in one piece. After a quick water change and also picking up a clown knifefish, we kept driving until we finally got to Sydney, where we did another water change. Up until this point, things were going really well, and all the fish were looking great too. I was so excited to finally have a black arowana in my collection again. I actually had a baby I grew out a fair few years ago that unfortunately passed away due to being poisoned during a water change. Unfortunately, the chloramine levels in the tap water at the time was way too high and couldn't be neutralized by dechlorinator alone. This is actually the main reason for me using 3-stage carbon filters for all my water changes from that point onwards. Anyway, back to the drive. Once the water changes were completed at Sydney, we set off on the final 8 hours of the drive. However, at around 5:30 AM in the morning, only 1 hour into the drive, everything started to go wrong. The back left tyre on the van had started to shred from all the driving over gravel roads, carrying maximum capacity. I managed to make it to a nearby tyre shop just before they opened, and after explaining the situation to the guys at the shop, they got straight to work to get us back on the road. So I have to give a massive shout out to the guys at Tyre Power in Timor for being absolute lifesavers. Once all the tyres had been replaced, we soldiered on to Melbourne as soon as we can, given we were a few hours behind schedule. And when I finally got home and opened the IBC, my heart sank. The fish I was most excited to have in my collection, the black arowana, was not looking good. It looked to be that somewhere between Sydney and Melbourne, it had panicked and hit its head. I didn't really get much footage of anything at this point because I was pretty upset by the whole situation. The water parameters of the transport tubs were perfectly fine given the filtration we use and the fact that we did 2 water changes along the way. Unfortunately, this was just bad luck. I moved the black arowana and the red-tailed giant gourami into one of my tanks and went off to deliver the rest of the fish I transported down for my customers. Unfortunately, the black arowana had passed away by the following morning. I did actually contemplate if I should talk about what happened with the black arrow or not, but I decided it would be important to be as transparent as possible when it comes to my videos and documenting my journey. It's also important that people see that it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You do sometimes find yourself in tough storms. It has now been a couple of weeks since the trip, and the red-tailed giant gourami has settled in really well. I hope to condition him up a bit more before letting him have a go with my breeding female, to see if he can have more success than my current male. The massive red-tailed catfish and all the other fish I delivered to my customers have also settled in really well, and even though I did end up losing the black arrow, overall it was a pretty successful trip. But hey, I definitely won't stop hunting for another black arrow, so it's only a matter of time before I have one in my collection again. So subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for more videos of all my progress, and as always, thank you so much for all your support. I guess I'll see you in the next one.